Hey, it's Friday, June 5th, 2020, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. As always, welcome to the show. And as always, just a minute here about be better citizens. So you got to get out there and ferret out the truth. That's the facts, the who, the what, the where, and the when. You got to put away all of this commentary and stuff that you see on the various information streams. They're just trying to manipulate you. They're trying to push your hot buttons. Okay, they're trying to keep you under control, as if you were in a cult, and you can't allow this to occur. So focus on the facts, the pro, and remember the issues are complex, so they're not just biased in your view. These things, there's 340 million Americans. You can guarantee that people have different perspectives on the various issues. And the only way that we're going to get to a place where we all are in a good place is to review these issues and in their complexity, in their entirety, pro and con, good and bad, for and against, and then decide, okay, with the reality, the whole nature of these issues, how do we go forward in a way that makes sense? And hence, I call this the Pro and Con Show. Now, I've been doing the show on various topics, and I'll continue to do those through November 3rd, 2020. That's the next big national election. But this handful of days, I'm just doing snippets about myself, about my life, just so people know about me. I might come handy someday, if nothing else. Family members, if I get the COVID-19 and I have a very bad way with it and perhaps leave this planet, at least they'll have some videos and stuff of me and talking about my perspectives, not only on some of the issues of the day, but just on my past life. On the whole, I do want to say, so this is years 41 to 50. So one more decade to go. That's the next show. One more, but this is the decade 41 to 50 for me. And I do want to take one moment right now to say, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit at the end of the last show, I've been very fortunate. And I want to say to people in general, whether or not you're a friend, a neighbor, a family member, I want to say that I have had a tremendously wonderful experience with people on the whole. Truly, I treat people, following the golden rule, basically. I try to treat them as I would want to be treated. And I have to say that for the most part, the vast majority of a huge high percentage of people have treated me with respect, with compassion. They've done things for me that they, voluntarily done things for me. There was no reason why they would do that. No reason why they'd have to do it, feel obliged to do it. But yet, if I was in a moment of crisis of some kind, they would help me. And I have done the same over the course of my decades here. I've helped people by paying their mortgages for an extended period of time because they had a family member who was going through a lot of hospitalization and stuff associated with cancer treatment and on and on and on. I've done a lot of community service work, worked on building a lot of homes, Habitat for Humanity, for example. I volunteered for St. Jude's. I've given a lot of money, something on the order of $100,000 to the St. Jude's over the course of years, because I'm just very impressed by the work that they do in support of people, families. Anyway, so I guess just to sum up that little snippet, I really appreciate humanity, and I hope that we're able to turn a corner here shortly and start doing a much better job taking care of the planet, because we need to do that, and taking care of people that don't look exactly as we as individuals do. In other words, we've got to get rid of a lot of bias, negative bias that we have a tendency to treat other people with that don't look like us. And that's those two main things. I hope we're able to turn a significant corner on that over the next handful of years. All right, so yeah, 41 to 50. So in the last show, I was talking about how my first marriage was not going all that well. And so we returned from Europe, and the adoptive daughter, we went to the Department of Social Services, and it's a traumatic thing for children. And it's one of the darkest days in my life, in my history, looking back at it, to go to the Department of Social Services and say, we can't do this, we can't keep this little girl with us. We have to put her back into an adoptive foster care kind of situation. And I think about that little girl who is now in her early 20s, I guess, early or mid 20s. Wherever she is, I hope that things worked out for her, and we don't know, they maintain a fairly good curtain of privacy, as well they should. So she's out there somewhere, and I hope happy, and I hope that she eventually found places with families that were able to, help her work through some of the issues that she had. Not her fault, just from all the kind of bad things that happened to her from the time she was born. Anyway, and then so we came back, and marriage is not working very well. We went ahead and built a nice home in Hickory, and I decided I was going to leave Corning and try to start my own business. And so myself and a couple of work colleagues, we threw some money together, and I jumped in full time. I was like, okay, here's a list of items that consumers might like. Here's some designs for them, which I kind of was the creative person behind all this stuff. And here's the first thing we're going to try, and the reason why is, easy to make, not too expensive, blah 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 blah. And we thought it would have value and stuff like that. So I worked on that for about 18 months before I realized that I'm not a good enough entrepreneur, and by that I mean that I'm risk averse with money. And what we really needed to do was put a sizable amount of money into it to do like one of these infomercial kinds of things for this product that was a fairly good product, but no one knew it existed. Well, no, not willing to do that. And so we, sold some hundreds and even thousands of them in the end, I think. But that was not near enough. We needed to be selling hundreds of thousands of them. And so I went back looking for work, and ended up, a former colleague hired me into a place up here in the Twin Cities, so Minneapolis, St. Paul, in a place called ADC. And so moved up here and started working in that new job as business development person, and then they switched me over into engineering, which I wasn't very happy about, to be honest. And then they left me in engineering because I'm a pretty good engineer, and they had me do that for an extended period of various things. And some of the programs were quite significant. Some of them were my ideas. But while this is going on, the issues with my wife, they came to a head, and I basically said, once my biological daughter, had moved out and gone off to school, I said, that's it. I can't do this anymore. You're not willing to work. We can't go to see counseling and stuff like that. So we're done. And yeah, so it was a very traumatic couple of years. I think the divorce lasted almost 3 years because my former wife was very resentful and bitter. And yeah, she did everything she could to try to make it, the very worst possible experience. And in fairness to her, I mean, she felt like she was a great wife and apparently had no understanding at all why I was divorcing her, at least in her head. But I'll get to perhaps that in a little bit. I guess maybe I'll get to it now. So the other thing that's going on is I came to realize that there were some mental health issues in my family. My daughter, my biological daughter, she did pretty darn good until she was around 14, 15 years old. And then something started changing and she got kind of darker and I don't know, she started behaving in ways that were just very unusual for her. And of course, it's the teen years, and all of us go through the teenage stuff, and it's all the changes and the hormones and things like that. But there was something else, and it turns out that my daughter suffers from something called borderline personality disorder. And this is a thing that a lot of people aren't familiar with because it's the various articles I've read, only 1 to 3% of the population suffer from this. A disproportionate number of people that suffer from BPD are female. And it also, there seems to be a hereditary element. And, then once I started reading more and more about how people who suffer from borderline personality disorder, they don't perceive things the way that most of us do. There's kind of a hypersensitivity in perception, especially negative perception. And so I'll tell you one little story. So my daughter, when she was 19 or 20, I was talking to her, and she'd been, we were actually there with some of her friends and stuff, and she goes, "Yeah, Dad, do you remember when you used to chase me around in the yard with the riding lawnmower?" And I was just like, "What? What?" And she said, "Yeah, you used to chase me around and riding," like it was funny or something like that. And I don't know, she was trying to validate this story that she had told to her friends or something. And I said, "Well, no, I mean, actually, when I mowed the grass, I did all the grass mowing. When I mowed the grass, we always made sure that you were inside the house because just totally afraid that, it might pick up a rock or something and you might be harmed in any way, shape, or form. You were never in the yard at all when I mowed at all, ever. We protected you because you were, this wonderful, valuable thing that we did not want to have even take the slightest chance might get hurt in any way." But it's these kinds of things. They apparently, their minds create these to them really lifelike memories of things to help them explain why they feel disproportionately or inappropriately bad about things that are happening to them. And in hindsight, then I started thinking about all the horrific stories that my first wife told me about her first marriage and her first husband. I never met him, by the way, never talked to him. And he, later died, while we were still married. None of that. And the family never talked about her, all her stuff and all that. So I now in hindsight, and she had no physical scars on her whatsoever, after, and she told me dozens of stories of all this, horrific warfare, basic physical warfare between her and her first husband, and yet she had no scars. And it all kind of came together for me once my daughter started suffering through these things, and we started learning more about the psychology of borderline personality disorder and this whole thing around it. And so anyway, so this is a source of course, darkness in my life, a generally positive life, but the fact that my first wife now, and I wish I had known back then about something, even known, like borderline personality disorder, would have helped. With understanding comes, an ability to deal, to make things work. And I had no idea about any of that at that time. Okay, so looks like my time is up for this decade. So on to the last decade, the next show. And until that show, I'm Michael James Ott for the Pro and Con Show. Bye for now.